Me, when I walked in here, I did not even have a job description, but I can create my own blueprint from scratch.
Hello, and welcome to Pharma Sessions, a place for pharmaceutical leaders to come and learn from each other. I'm your host, Jonathan Kaskey. Technology and market trends are bringing change at an ever-accelerating rate, and no person, team, or company can afford to be left behind. Here, we dive into the strategies and tactics that our guests use to tackle these challenges and create new opportunities, and how you can do the same in your own organization. What have you had to eat so far today?
Actually, just 2 cups of coffee. I'm not a much morning eater or a breakfast person, so my day usually starts 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not much of a morning eating person, but I'm sure after this episode, I'll get something to eat.
Okay, very good. Well, at least you're fully caffeinated and ready to go. I found the most wonderful overnight oats recipe. It's healthy. It's made with almond milk and spices and chopped up dates, and it's like a nice light breakfast. I have it with a coffee, and it gets me through a large chunk of the day.
That's awesome. Maybe after this episode, I'll ask you for the recipe.
I'll put it in the show notes. A couple episodes ago, I put a pancake recipe in there and people seem to like that. So I'm a big breakfast person. All right. So let's jump right in. So you're currently with Celltrion USA. And what is your current role there, and what brought you to them?
Sure. So my current role is I'm the Vice President of Medical Affairs at Celltrion USA. And I can walk you through the journey as to how I got here. A little bit about myself. I am a pharmacist by education and also have an MBA. My earlier careers started as a clinician, which really grounded me in patient-centered care. So I did work as a clinical pharmacist at one of the hospitals in Chicago for almost 8 years. And from there, I transitioned into working as an investigational drug pharmacist, overseeing various clinical trials across multiple therapeutic areas. That give me an understanding into the multifaceted approach of a drug approval. The next transition after that was easily to get into medical affairs. I have spent most of my career now in pharma industry, and I worked across multiple companies such as Janssen through Syneos, Coherus Biosciences, Greenwich Biosciences, which is now part of Jazz Pharma. And over there, most of my work had been doing either evidence generation, working cross-functionally with medical, commercial, global, regulatory affairs, launching multiple products, and then building field teams. So when this opportunity came to work at Celltrion USA almost 2 years ago, what really excited me about this is to build something from scratch. I didn't only want to manage what's there, but to build it from ground up. So that's where the journey started here for me 2 years ago in 2023. It's actually just yesterday was 2 years since I've been at Celltrion USA.
Congratulations. So the working title we have for this episode is Ready, Set, Launch. And I think when we were doing the prep calls, you were describing starting at Celltrion USA almost immediately before a launch. So when you say the opportunity presented itself, what was the opportunity and what was appealing about it?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I do like something to build from ground up to something really create something. Now, Celltrion USA is part of Celltrion. Celltrion is a global company. Our headquarters is in South Korea, but we do have offices in close to 35 countries. Celltrion is really steeped in deep scientific roots. It has deep scientific roots. It has global outreach. But back in 23, they were really looking to build their whole Celltrion USA operations here in the US. So it was really in the really early innings back then. So for me to come at that time and, build a whole function of medical affairs at Celltrion USA while launching multiple drugs. When I first came on board in May, we were getting ready to launch one drug in 3 weeks. Second drug was going to be launched in 3 months. And then we were also gearing up for our strong pipeline and rich pipeline that we had. Fast forward now to 2 years, we have 4 drugs approved and launched in the markets, remaining 4 drugs that are approved and waiting to be launched in the US market. So this was a mix of challenge and opportunity, right? So you needed to have an agility of a startup, but to also function at the scale of a global player. So I took that as an opportunity to come here and build something. That was something that I found really exciting.
Yeah. And where were you immediately before? I know you could have shared the brief background, but you were at Greenwich that had been acquired, or where were you right before Celltrion USA?
Before Celltrion, I was at Coherus Biosciences. I was there for 3 years in the medical affairs team, and where I worked as a medical science liaison as well as a player coach. And primary of our focus at Coherus Biosciences was biosimilars. And when I came over to Celltrion, they were also looking for somebody with an expertise in biosimilars and the US market. So then it was a natural transition.
Gotcha. So when you started, 3 weeks before launch, which is kind of crazy, right? I believe you were in a senior MSL or MSL director role. How was the work you were doing in that environment different from what you might have been doing at a large company in the same role? And I kind of ask that because there are a lot of people that listen to this that are big companies, small companies, and there's always this feeling of is the grass greener on my side or the other side? So what are some of the differences?
That's a great question, Jonathan. So people coming from big companies, they know what is expected of them. They have all the groundwork laid down. They have all the foundations laid down. Me, when I walked in here, I did not even have a job description. But for me, I found it personally due to my personality, the way I was looking at it, I found that I can create my own blueprint from scratch. Right. So, in many essence, it was quite challenging, but quite interesting as well, because there was no job description. And be it as an MSO or an MSL director, or, wherever you're part of a startup, you do essentially everything. You're wearing multiple hats. You're doing multiple things at one time. So I remember in those early stages, right, I was manually writing the SOPs. I was building the hiring and onboarding and training programs for the MSLs. I was interviewing MSLs. I was creating resources for field work, right? Those presentations that MSLs will be utilizing in the field. I was working with the payer team for getting access and formulary. I was working with commercial training program. So multiple different things that was being done at that time. But it was incredibly fast paced, but it was also incredibly satisfying. And not every day do you get a chance to leave your legacy behind where you're building something from ground up and being part of something that's amazing, where you can now say 2 years you've launched multiple drugs in such a short period of time.
It is really a huge accomplishment. So how do you manage all that, right? Because a lot of what you described, any one of those activities, if you're working at a Pfizer or BMS, that could be a single person's whole job, and you still have to do all the other stuff. So how do you actually manage doing all of that?
Jonathan, back then, we knew that the speed was the need. We had to operate extremely efficiently, but we had to scale quite quickly. So at that time, trying to juggle multiple things while making sure things are done or built in a compliant manner was quite challenging. And on top of that, if you add a layer of aligning the global US functions with the US functions was also different, where you're working with a global company and trying to adapt their ways to a US medical function ways also. So that was also quite challenging. But what helped me going first was, in a startup company, it is the caliber of people that you work with. You have the opportunity and the flexibility to tap into the rich talent of pool that's across various departments, and which probably you may not find in a big company that they're often siloed with each other. So here we rely so much on each other. Collaboration is not optional. Collaboration is critical over here. You have to be working together, right? For me, it was triaging. What needs to be done today? What can be done tomorrow, and what can be first done later, right? So for me, that was again helped me navigate through priorities, what was needed, and also was also important that all the time we needed to know that why are we doing and what are we doing. What brought me to Celltrion was the promise of all the drugs that we are bringing, the valuable, affordable medications for patients, improving patient access, the people, and the pipeline. So it was challenging, but yes, we did get through one step at a time, building one block at a time, and now we are here. Back then, I used to call it as building the plane as I fly. Even now, as I'm building my team and I'm interviewing MSLs for building my team, I tell people I'm still building my plane as I fly. I'm still over the Atlantic Ocean, but I'm still building it. You know, that was the speed that was needed back then, putting the foundation. But now I am looking for more efficiency, right? So, yeah, one thing at a time, one step at a time.
Yeah. So a couple of things you said that I think are just very, very cool. So the speed was the need. I remember at one point I was interviewing and I was going from the biggest company I'd ever worked for. I've always been on the tech side to a startup, like a 25-person startup. And at the time at the big company, I was in the midst of this protracted, like year-long MSA, Master Services Agreement negotiation with a big pharma company where there was over $1 million of business, kind of just sitting there if we could get our lawyers to agree to certain things. And it was just we just couldn't, right? And I ended up, as I was interviewing, I was talking with the CEO of this company. He's like, oh, I have to take a call. Why don't you sit in? Because it'll give you a sense of how we work. And it was an MSA negotiation. And he was literally making decisions, right? And he's like, oh, we can do this. We can't do this, right? But it was being done in what was taking me a year in probably in half an hour to an hour. And it was a very different mindset. And not that there weren't good reasons for why they were saying no to certain things, but the speed was the need, I think, is very, very important when it's a smaller company. And the other thing that you said that I like quite a lot is this idea of triaging. So even in my day-to-day, I grab this. This is my to-do list, right? So I always every day I have a list and it fits on a note card. And if it gets longer than the note card, then something else has to get crossed off the note card because you can only do so much. So really, you have to work only on the most important things and then figure out how you can rely on other people or systems or whatever to do anything else, or else you just go crazy, right? Or else, right? Because the answer is not to work 12 hours a day, right? That's not the answer. The answer is to figure out how to do a really good job in a reasonable period of time, so you don't, keel over at your desk.
Work hard and work smart.
Yeah, exactly. And the building the plane. So you still feel even, a couple years in, 4 drug launches behind you, 4 coming, you're still building the plane. Is that still is your mindset, or how has that shifted? Great, because you have to have some of that stuff done at this point.
So I feel like I have the majority of the plane built. I'm probably just adding the wings to it, if you may, right? Right now, I'm expanding the team to 14 MSLs. So I'm interviewing, hiring people, getting more on place because of the multiple drug launches and approvals that are set for the pipeline. And I'm also right now in the refining stage. Right back then, I was not waiting for direction. I created the direction. We did it what was needed at that time, and we'll refine it later. So now I am expanding and refining the processes that we've laid in place. So we can efficiently work through multiple products. Yes, back then it was 2 products in 3 months. We managed to do it, and we did it in a smart way. We did it in an efficient way. We built the systems. We empowered people. But now we want to take it to the next stage to make it more sustainable. That all those multiple drugs coming, it can be supported by the medical affairs function. Because honestly, I feel medical affairs has come such a long way from what it was before. Earlier, it was just being the scientific backbone or providing medical information or scientific data. But now it's so much more. It's into strategy. It's cross collaboration with regulatory, with commercial, with marketing, creating your messaging. So I do feel that having a strong medical affairs for the team, for a company, plays an essential role in the pre-launch, peri-launch, and post-launch phase of a drug.
Yeah. All right. Well, Hetal, let's help you solve this problem, right? So how many MSLs do you have, and how many you said you're going for 14? How many do you currently have?
I do. So I have 7 MSLs.
You're doubling.
I am doubling. Yes. I have
Okay.
7 MSLs. I just hired 4 MSLs. Well, one, the offer is extended. I'm looking for 3 more. And I'm also looking to hire 1 regional team director. I have 1, and I'm looking to hire 1 more regional team director. So anyone listening, if they want to apply, please let me know.
No, I think this is so. Let's talk about this because honestly, one, that would be a really cool outcome. But also, I think it's like it has to be different when you're hiring MSLs at a company, like the environment you just described. So, when you're trying to build a team and make sure everybody is meshing and working well and collaborative, as you were just describing, what are you looking for? Like what are kind of the key things where it's like, oh yeah, this person could really bring something of value and it's worth exploring.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, as I mentioned, in a startup culture or the place that Celltrion USA is right now, collaboration is so critical. I rely heavily on my current team. I want us all to write the playbook together of Celltrion US Medical Affairs, right? So each brings in their unique sets of strengths and weaknesses and personalities, and we all work together to now refine the system that we've created. So when I'm interviewing the MSLs, as much as I love to coach and mentor and create, help new aspiring MSLs, at this stage where Celltrion USA is with multiple launches coming up, I feel I need some MSL experience. But also, apart from that, what I'm looking in a person is, are they solution oriented? Are they self starters? Are they adaptable?
So how do you interview for that, right? Because it's something that I've struggled with, right? Because he's like, well, are you solution oriented? And everybody says, yeah. So how do you interview for that?
Yeah, so it sometimes gets tricky, and again, I rely heavily on my other commercial counterparts to also interview and see if they will be a fit for this team. But I do ask them questions as to if you have certain kind of roadblocks or you don't have this process in place. How do you navigate through that, right? And that gives me an insight into their personality. Are they solutions oriented? Are they self starters? Are they looking for solutions, or they just come up with, oh, this is not working, right? So for me, that is extremely important. And I want them to hit the ground running, which is what is probably required over here at MSL position. So those are some of the things I do look for MSLs coming in. And again, if person coming maybe probably from a big company, they may be expecting upset processes and rigidity. Perhaps they may not be a fit for Celltrion USA right now. I'm not saying that they're less capable or less experienced. It may just not be the right fit at this time if they're looking for set processes. So these are small things I'm looking in a person. And for me, at this point, team culture is so extremely important. The team that I have right now, they are amazing. They understand what's required, what's there, what's not there, and what needs to be done. And we all pitch in to help. So that is something that I extremely value when I'm interviewing a person.
I mean, a lot of what we talked about today is the difference between big pharma and startup world. But I can share from my own experience when I was managing a sales team at a true startup. It was like 12 people on the MIT campus and across two rooms, and we needed to hire some salespeople, right? And I was like, okay. I'm living in Boston. HubSpot at the time was just blowing up, and they've continued to. Now they're a huge public company. But it's like they give really good training. I'm just going to hire whoever I can. I'm going to poach from HubSpot, basically. And so I got some people that we were super excited to have over, and it just didn't work because they were used to this system of everybody knows who you are. They sort of know people, you're getting spoon fed all of this stuff. And that wasn't the case at my company. And as much as you try to think about that and describe it, it's a big difference, right? So I've kind of shifted, and now the questions that I like to ask to kind of get at that is about describing a challenge you've faced and how you've overcome it, right? Or describe a time that you've come up with an innovative approach. And then you can talk 2-3 levels deep on that, because no matter what the job, there are always creative ways to try to solve problems. And I think more than anything, for me personally, what I'm looking for in startup environments is that mindset of, all right, this is what we're faced with. Now, how are we going to solve it? And I think that's a lot of what you were describing at the very beginning about doing all of the medical queries, the clinical presentations, the ad boards, the conferences, the payer presentations, right? One way is to look at that as, oh my God, that's overwhelming. Another way is, well, here's the challenge. I only have so many resources and I have all this stuff I need to do. So how are we going to to marry those two things?
That's a great question. So, yes, back in those days, it was quite challenging. And again, that time the goal was to build what we need and build something that's scalable. And, that time doing multiple things at one time is, I knew that I was sitting on such vast, rich knowledge of insights. I've been talking to payers, I've been attending conferences, I've been meeting these HCPs, I've been meeting these leaders and influencers, and they're telling us so many great things about our drug or a product or the landscape or all of that, right? And they were there, they were siloed, like, okay, we went to this one meeting, it's there. We went to this meeting with it. But how do I create that into an action? How do I take it next step? So it was sitting there, nothing was done. But I think now that I have my team and now that we have everybody, we have actually created an insight team. We call them IT for lack of creativity, but we call them an IT team, insight team. And it's really great. We are working now to look at literature, to look at social media listening, look at conferences, look at what the individual MSLs, when they meet with the HCPs, are doing, and gather all of those insights and analyze them, digest them, and tell us. That will give us a strategy. Okay, now that our drug is in the market for a year or 2 years, what is the next step I need to take? Where should I pivot? Where should I focus my strategy or field tactics in? So that is something I felt that was a challenge 2 years ago. I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to do that, right? Because you're about multiple hats. But now that I can take a step back and look at the big picture, zoom in, zoom out, if you may, and then figure out my strategy. So I think that has been something that I feel that has helped me develop something.
Very interesting. I mean, everything you're describing is very cool, right? It's now you have a little bit of breathing room and you're using that to take a step
I
back
won't
and
say
be
that
strategic
I have
about.
breathing room, but yes, I can breathe.
That's good. Well, if I was an MSL, I'd be applying. So I think you've developed something really interesting. And so these next 4 drugs that you're going to launch, I mean, there must be some learnings. Like, what do you think you'll be doing differently for the next ones than you did for the previous ones?
Start ahead of time.
Yeah, not
Typically,
3 weeks in
not
advance.
3 weeks, not 3 months for sure. Absolutely. But I think, yes, usually, typically, a medical affairs team comes into being if it is a brand new biologic drug or brand new drug, at least 24 to 36 months before the drug is getting approved, right? For biosimilars, it may be slightly different. Nevertheless, a medical affairs team comes into being at least 12 months before a drug is approved by the FDA. So those are the lessons that I learned in the past. So hoping with upcoming drugs approvals and launches, I'm much more prepared. I have all the resources developed. My team is trained to answer the queries. Medical information system is in place. So it's much more defined, and the foundation is in place. So I feel that I'm much more prepared going on for these different launches.
Nice. So as we wrap up here, if you had any words of wisdom from going through this experience over the last just a couple of years, you said 2023, right? Put yourself in the position of yourself right before you made that decision. What are your words of wisdom for somebody who's starting writing their own job description and kind of building med affairs from scratch?
I feel that I would like to say, don't be afraid to take the risk. If you're walking into a blank slate, some may feel challenged or scared that, oh, what is the next day going to hold? What's the next week going to hold? What's the next month going to hold? You don't know. But that also gives you an opportunity to expand yourself, to grow, to learn, and to establish something. I think we proved that medical affairs is important. We can build something fast and we can build something smart as long as we have the right mindset and the right set of people with you. So I'm really excited to see where medical affairs goes in the future, to be nimble, deeply rooted in patient care, but at the same time to be adaptable and take what the challenge comes for you. And something that I would also like to add is, we talked a couple times about the startup culture or in small pharma versus a big pharma, right? it's not everybody's made for everybody, so some people may be welcoming with the startup culture, some people only like the strength and all that. Personally, coming from my or I like coming I've worked with Janssen, I worked with Greenwich Biosciences, Jazz Pharma, and now in a small company, so I've kind of seen both sides has its pros and cons. On a very personal light note, I like it over here because my name is Patel, but as you know, Patel is such a common name, right? At least here, there is no number after my Patel. I'm the first Patel in the company, right? So that helps me. When I was at Janssen or any other, I was something Hetal Patel 700 or 800 or something.
H Patel 35. Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. So yeah, and I think what you said about earlier about leaving a legacy, right? You can look back and say you've made a huge impact on this company, on, ultimately it's about getting the drugs into patients, into patients' bodies. And if you don't have a successful launch, the drugs don't get out there and people don't get the medicine, right? So that is a tremendous accomplishment.
Absolutely. And when I talk to patients or patient advocacy groups and the impact that these biosimilars or even our other drugs, novel biologics have made, it's deeply satisfying to see. Yes, we hustled for the last 2 years, we got things running, but when you talk to these patients and we see the difference that is something that makes every day worth it.
Excellent. Well, let's leave it there. And thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Pharma Sessions with me, Jonathan Kaskey. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to hit follow or subscribe and share it with someone else in the pharma world who might need to hear it. For more on pharma trends, career growth, and business strategies, connect with me, Jonathan Kaskey, on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks for listening.